Okay, guys, welcome back to the Of Stone and Clay podcast. I'm your host, Taylor Church. This is episode 149, and we have an awesome guest today this is our first date, essentially. We met maybe a month ago at this like podcasting event, and I've seen you around. You've been on my friends' podcasts and vice versa. And Mike is sort of what's a good one encapsulating word for you think? Like Mike does
human.
He's a human. We have a human on set today. Mike is a facilitator of Breathwork. He does a lot of men's retreats. And then you do both genders, I guess.
Couples events.
Couples events with your wife.
And my wife does women's events too. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. And you are a host of two different podcasts. You have the Here Brotherhood. You have the Light in Us podcast. What else?
That covers it pretty well, honestly.
You're a human, as you specified.
A husband, a father.
Yeah. How many kids do you have?
5.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a full brood.
Yeah, it's a full crew. It's awesome.
And if you're just listening, Mike has such a balance of salt and pepper in his beard, like a really good, healthy balance. Yeah. Is that fairly new that the
salt is emerging more? It used to just be a little here and here, and then it's just like spread in the last few years. But
that's how it goes. Yeah, I've got some little friends that we don't need to talk about. But I guess just my first inquiry is what got you so interested in healing? I guess is the main word. Like, it sounds a little hokey to just call you a healer. It sounds like you're trying to be a guru.
Right.
But your focus is healing. Your focus is self-improvement and progression and love. What is it that made you sort of just gravitate towards that?
Oh, I mean, I think it's like the purpose of existence of life.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's in the experiencing of those kinds of things for ourselves that we go, wow, this was life-changing and it was powerful. And now I feel called to help in whatever way I can. And it just with my fellow beings, right? Like how can I help facilitate these same kinds of experiences that I was blessed to have? And so there's a bunch of stories we can get into around that, but that's kind of high level, the answer.
When did you kind of start doing those things? Has it been a really long time? Or
I mean, not really in earnest until it was around 2021, so about 4 years ago. That's when our lives just took a total turn. But prior to that, I was already pretty interested in a lot of this space in this realm. My wife had done yoga certification years prior, and we were kind of integrating that into our lives and into our concepts of spirituality and wellness and mindfulness, and everything was just coming together in really interesting ways, and we just found it fascinating. And so we just kept learning about things and having these kind of deep conversations, and then we're experiencing life as parents, and we're experiencing everything that comes with that, making the mistakes that we made as parents, and our kids are such crucial teachers to us, because they just reflect back so much to us, sometimes the things we really don't want to see.
Yeah, sure.
And it's like, wow, we're just in family, in relationship, we get so many opportunities to see ourselves, everything, even the things we don't want to see, but we see ourselves and we go, oh, that's there. Okay. Now how do I manage that, deal with that, move through that? We've had a lot of great mentors and teachers and resources that have just given us this experience to the point where we felt like, we feel called to like help others. We were on the receiving end so much throughout the years, and now it feels like we can offer something to people. And of course we continue to receive as well. I mean, I'm in the middle of like a training right now, and I go to retreats, and then I host retreats, and there's just this beautiful kind of cycle of giving and receiving.
That's cool. What do you feel like makes you, not like on paper qualified, but what about your personality and maybe your upbringing or your experience makes you like excel in this area, in this field?
I don't know. Well, yeah. So I think that I feel like we all come with certain gifts or
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe that's a
abilities or
better
whatever.
question. What are
Yeah.
some of your gifts?
I think the ability to hold space, to listen, to empathize. I grew up, and I think these things we can tie back to like early development,
Yeah. Yeah.
childhood, and what kind of family did we grow up in, and that sort of thing. I grew up in a house of 4 older sisters and my mom, and without a dad
Okay.
until I was like 7 years old, and then my
Okay.
mom married my current dad, and
Yeah.
he's my stepdad, but I just call him my
Yeah.
dad.
So just wandering in estrogen for years.
Yeah, and big personalities, big opinions, voices, arguments, energy, just a ton. And I learned to just kind of like be in stillness, and I was kind of quiet.
Yeah.
And and there's the strength and the weakness side to that kind of environment, and on the one hand it was some of these strengths, like the ability to just kind of listen and hold space, and sometimes my older sisters would kind of confide in me or vent to me, and I would have no idea what to say.
Yeah.
And that was actually probably the best thing,
right.
to just listen.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, there's something there. On the other hand, one of the weaknesses that came from that environment was finding my own voice, and feeling like my voice and my opinion matter.
Yeah.
Because in that setting, it was easy to just get drowned out or to be dismissed, or like, oh, it's just little, the little brother, like whatever, it doesn't have anything right. valid or important to say.
Yeah.
And so there's some kind of like wounds around that too. And so I think with many things on the flip side of a strength is a weakness, and that's one for me. And so that comes to mind. I think just an interest, a passion in people and in relationship and in our healing and I'm really fascinated by kind of the dual nature of us as humans, where we do have this flesh and blood and bone and the mind, and then there's this something else, this other kind of ethereal part of us, the divine or the spirit, or in meditation, in some practices they just call it like the true self, or the observer, or just pure consciousness. I think a lot of those things are pretty synonymous, just using different terminology, right? That to me is fascinating. Like, what is that, and how do I tap into that? How do I feel like connected with that part of me, when if we're kind of like dual beings, we experience so much through the physical senses, and it's really easy to attach our whole sense of identity and self to that. But then there's something more, right? And I think we all feel that, but it's not as tangible. It's not as measurable. It's not as like easy to quantify or identify. And so there's this kind of mystery that's really beautiful to explore and to feel after and to connect with.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, for me, I always think about love, and I'm like, how do you even explain love scientifically?
Right. Yeah.
Like how do you scientifically explain like I'm falling in love, or like my heart is broken,
right.
or like, I don't, maybe you can measure what's happening in the brain, right? But how do you explain how it germinates and how it becomes,
and the feeling of it too, right? The energy of it. Like, well, I'd be curious to ask. I mean, I gave you a little bit of background and context, and I'm wanting to know about you as well, and what led you to do what you're doing, and just the kinds of conversations that you have in this setting are just immediately like authentic and open and genuine. And I'm just curious what led you to
thank you.
the work you do now.
Man, this is such a hard question to answer fully, because I mean, you probably felt the same. You're kind of like, I don't know everything in my
whole life.
Right?
Yeah, totally.
But it wasn't something that, it's funny. It wasn't a childhood dream, because this dream didn't exist when I was a child, right? Podcasting wasn't a thing. I think I always enjoyed conversation and connection. I was always pretty extroverted, even when I was a kid and was a little bit shy for a minute. It didn't last very long. I enjoyed attention, and I enjoyed having friends and being around people. I just always did. And I think as I got older, I got really interested in just depth. I got interested in, okay, this happened to you, great, but why? And how does that make you feel, And I don't think I'm especially like qualified to do any of this, but I'm just curious and I'm interested and I'm just here, And so I guess as things evolved over the years, I just I wanted to kind of dig into people's souls and see what was going on, like I was so curious about my own soul
Yeah.
and my own wonderings and my own like troubles and sadness. And I was kind of like, are other people feeling these things, And then every once in a while, when you did kind of decide to be a little bit vulnerable, sometimes people would be just as vulnerable right back. And you're like, wow, this is actually pretty easy to do. Like, I think some people think vulnerability is so scary, but if you can kind of foster relationships that encourage kindness and safety and acceptance and stillness, like you can say what you want to anybody, and you don't have to worry. And to me, if I'm vulnerable and I share and it's received with judgment or critique or meanness, I'm kind of like, well, that sucks, but that's a great indicator that person like doesn't deserve to hear that kind of stuff anymore. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I don't know. People always ask me why I started the podcast, and I don't have a grand reason. I just thought it would be fun. I thought it would be great.
Well, I'm glad that it wasn't just about the podcast. It's about the kinds of conversations that you have, and the platform happens to be the podcast, right? But really it's about the connections that you're making. And you spoke to that, I am just kind of curious because I went there with way back for me.
Yeah.
Like, what about for you? What was the environment that you grew up in, and do you see maybe a correlation or a connection with those early, family relationships?
That's a good question. I would say, I grew up with just two sisters, kind of similar to yours, but my mom and dad, and it was just a very encouraging place to be, right?
Cool.
There was like all emotions were allowed, and even though my dad like was an athlete and was really talented in a lot of things and was an artist and was of the two parents more the disciplinarian, there was never a like, I can't cry in front of dad because he's going to get pissed or he's going to be like toughen up.
Yeah.
He was a soft guy. He was sensitive himself. And so when you see your dad cry, you're kind of like, oh, I have immediate permission. And it's funny, when you're young, you don't even think about it that way.
Totally.
But I think your brain says, okay, I'm allowed to cry now.
Oh yeah. We're totally being conditioned and socialized into the world. Right. And so, that's amazing that you had a masculine presence like that.
Yeah. And listen, I'm not going to sit here and say like I had the ideal, perfect childhood, like we had our trials, we were on food stamps for a minute. My dad dealt with some really, really serious depression for a lot of years. My mom was an absolute hero and like worked any odd job she had to help. And they did a terrific job of maybe shielding us from some of the heaviness of that. But yeah, to have a childhood that was, it just had so much softness, I guess I would say, and that makes it so now as an adult, I don't know, I want to foster the same thing with other people.
And it was safe to feel and to express and emote and connect, right? And and that you've talked about vulnerability already, right? And like the conditions needed for vulnerability, it's that safety. And you already spoke about, there can be reactions of criticism, judgment, rejection, fear, whatever. And I've had that too, right? We often, in the work that I do, I am vulnerably reaching out to people and saying, hey, do you want to come and join this thing or come and experience this thing? And you kind of just have to experience it to know, like, it's hard to explain what it's going to be, but like, just come. And I've had people just very resistant to that. And initially I would feel a little hurt by that. It was kind of like, oh, it's like, I'm trying to invite them to something that's so like powerful and precious to me. And they're just like, nah, it's like, ouch. So, but I've come to just look at that with a greater level of compassion and just be like, okay, they're not ready for it yet. But when they are, I can't wait for them. Like, I'm so excited for the time when they go, all right, I think I'm ready to, it takes courage to step into vulnerability. But the fact that like you grew up with an environment that it was very safe, and it explains a lot, right? Of why it feels so safe for you to go there.
And I think also a really big element is the friends I happen to gravitate towards, and because especially as a dude, like growing up, men have such a weird relationship with crying and like getting over emotional. Whereas women, it's just kind of part of the way they interact, when they're sad, they cry and their friends comfort them and it's no big deal, With guys, it's kind of like, even though I felt safe with my buddies, you don't want to feel like a little sissy boy that can't hold his stuff together, especially when you're like pubescent and you're just trying to figure it all out. And I was always just a sensitive kid, like pretty on the brink of tears if something, I could hold it off decently, but yeah, for a lot of years, even now, like I have friends that have seen me cry, that have been there when I'm like really going through stuff and have held my hand, but there's still that inclination to be like, okay, let me kind of hold this in because my buddy doesn't want to see me cry. You know what I mean? Where I feel like women just aren't that way. What do you feel like your relationship with crying is?
Oh, I mean, it's something that I felt the same way. I felt like it was something to, not do in front of other guys, especially because it was an indication of like, weakness, or you can't hold it together, or it makes people uncomfortable. I think that was like the biggest one. It's just awkward. It's uncomfortable. Somebody starts crying. You're like,
right.
What do I do now? And I felt that a lot growing up. I had a lot of social influences that were sort of that like typical, masculine kind of distortion of like, it's about being the toughest or the fastest or the smartest or the whatever, right? So I had to, but then privately I was, much more comfortable with the fact that I had emotions. Probably growing up in that environment that I did, it modeled a little bit of that to me. I was typically a little bit more of a sensitive kid. I wasn't like the star athlete. I wasn't like the alpha whatever, right? I was kind of like the artist, and I was into like music and that, being into art led me into design eventually. And that's part of my career path that, we can touch on later if that's relevant. But the relationship with expressing emotion changed pretty significantly into adulthood. And it just comes with kind of a maturity and let me unpack a little bit of what are the beliefs that I'm carrying and are they actually true, challenging, questioning some things. And then also like seeing it modeled from other people that I love and respect. That's a big piece of it, right? Like I'd see examples of what I thought were these, awesome manly men, and then they express some softness or some emotion, and I'm like, oh, cool. Right. And then I respect them even more, So it's probably a mix of a lot of things, but
I think one of the main reasons why crying was so hard for me when I was younger, and like you, I definitely cried more at home than in public, right? But I think when you're younger and you're still so unfamiliar with all your emotions, it's really hard to cry sort of gracefully. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, and you're so insecure about so many other things that crying, makes you feel weak, and that makes you insecure because of this, and this,
Yeah.
right? And now, like, I feel like I'm so secure in most areas of my life that I'm like, yeah, I can let some tears flow,
Yeah.
and I can do it fairly, like, without sniveling and having snot go everywhere. I can just, I can just let them fall, because I think sometimes our anxiety about crying just exacerbates the situation, So yeah, I think, and I don't know about you, but I feel like I've almost gotten, like, I have way more control over it, but I'm also way more sensitive as I get older. Do you feel that way?
That's interesting. No, as you were saying that, I'm like, I maybe have gone a slightly different route where when I'm ready to like have a big emotional release, it is a mess.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like an ugly cry.
Okay.
Like,
So it's kind of bottled for a little bit and then it implodes.
I don't feel like I'm suppressing or bottling it up. I just feel like when it comes, it's, and maybe it is because I've, I feel like most of the circumstances when I have a big emotional release, it's when I've tapped into something that is just so profoundly like healing and powerful that I can't help but just,
Yeah.
So those are the ones that come to mind. But yeah, if it's sort of like, I don't know, listening to some beautiful music and meditating on something, like I might have a little more of that, graceful, like on camera, like the tear comes down or whatever. Right. But most often when it comes up and comes out, it's been in these kind of big healing, transformational moments where I just can't help but let it come out in a big way.
Yeah. I think I haven't had a true, like, deeply ugly cry for maybe like a year or so. But it was like, man, when I had it, I was like, where is this coming from?
Yeah.
What are all these liquids that are going on? This is crazy. 'Cause I'll really easily tear up, listening to music, watching, a movie or something. I'll get affected really easily, but I don't often just like have a bad day and cry.
Yeah, it's not like that for me either. It's I feel like the tears for me are kind of around these moments of breakthrough or just of joy, gratitude, and just felt so deeply. I don't know that I often, I can't think of a time where I just cried out of like, today was really hard and I'm now going to cry, and maybe that's something to explore, that's probably where I suppress it, and then in those powerful moments, it's like, oh, you've been loading these up for weeks and months.
Yeah. It's tough though. 'Cause you sometimes as a man, you can't be crying every night.
Yeah.
Like, you have to get things done and you have to be an anchor for other people. And so you kind of, I don't want to say you pick and choose, but sometimes you just have to be strong and say, I'm not going to bury this under a rug, but I'm going to address it in a bit.
Yeah. No, I think there is something to that. And that's something that I see in the spaces that we create. This is a place where you can now feel, and it's, because sometimes it can be confusing, like to your family or to your kids or to a coworker or whatever. And I feel like there are times and places where it's like, yes, now I can like let this out and really fully express and emote. And there are other contexts which, just for social and other reasons, we're like, this probably isn't the right time or place to like crack open or to get like super raw and vulnerable. And I think we're generally moving towards more vulnerability as a society, which I think is a good thing, but it doesn't have to be like everywhere all the time.
Right. Well, then you're just unstable.
Yeah.
I guess.
Right.
Yeah. When did you, or maybe why did you get so interested in with the Here Brotherhood with suicide prevention?
So that's actually an interesting question, because that wasn't really my area of greatest interest or focus even. And some of my co-founders, it was a big part of their why of starting that thing. For me, it was actually, I was like, hey, but we're not a suicide prevention hotline.
Yeah.
Like that's not what it's core, what it's about.
Right.
And there are other resources that are much more qualified and frankly should be the first,
Yeah.
call.
Mhm.
What I was interested in was all the other aspects of, what we were talking about at the beginning, the healing, the breakthroughs, the connection, the strength and vulnerability.
Mhm.
That's where I was like, yes, that's what
Yeah.
this is about for me. I love, though, that there have been stories of guys who have said, I was having those thoughts, or I was on the edge. And then there was one guy who wrote us a letter and just said, I had seen what you guys were doing, and I signed this here brotherhood oath thing that said, like, I'll be my brother's keeper and I'll be there for my brothers, but also when I'm struggling, I will reach out. And I think that's like the biggest piece for a lot of guys. It's not just like, hey, I'll be there for you. It's like, I'll ask for help when I'm hurting, when I'm struggling. And he was in a place where he was like really considering taking his own life. And then he had already signed that oath, though, and he remembered it. And in that moment, he was like, I can't let my brothers down, and I got to reach out. And he chose that. And it was like he pre-decided, and then the circumstances came. And I'm like, I love that happened. It's incredible. It was a beautiful thing. But yeah, it wasn't my primary driver.
Right. What would you, I don't know if you've sat with friends or people in your groups like this, but what would be your advice to someone that is just like, I'm on my last like strand. I don't want to be here anymore.
Yeah.
Like, how do you sit with somebody that's going through something like that?
Yeah. You almost just answered it in the way you asked that question. You just sit with them, listen, be there for them. For me, there's a little bit of a delineation. If it's sort of like, I might ask some questions like, do you have a plan? Like how serious and how far along are we? And based on the answers I'll get with that, I'll be like, let's get you some help right away. Right. If it's just like, I really hate sitting in the pain that I'm in, and I would rather not exist because it just hurts too much. Then I'm like, but they don't have a plan and they're not, showing that they're like planning to take action or whatever. That's when I'll sit with them, allow them to express and to hold space with them, and allow whatever needs to come up. And then if they are open to it, if they want to, explore some things together, we'll explore some things, dig into what's the root cause of the pain that they're feeling, and see if we can find some clarity, some awareness. A lot of times the pain that we feel, we're not even fully conscious of what it is or why it's there. But when we can distill that down and identify it, it somehow lessens the gravity of it. It's like, oh, I can now identify this, and suddenly it's like it's more manageable when we know what it is, right?
Yeah, because sometimes it's just such a like dark malaise that you're like, I don't even know what this is. And also, I feel like most people that are really on the brink and are really having that sort of ideation, they feel like every domain of their life is a mess and is dark and broken, is hopeless. And so, to show them, okay, I understand that, but there is hope here, and there is purpose here, and there's light here, can be helpful.
Yeah, no, that one of the things that came to mind, there was a study, and I can't remember exactly the source, but with the increase of male depression and suicidality and all of that, there were kind of two main insights that came from like what was at the core of those feelings, of those thoughts. And it was that either I feel useless or I feel worthless. And so that's an area that often comes up. Like I feel like I have no purpose. That's the useless. Or I feel like I am not worthy of love, of belonging, of acceptance. And so for me, that's often a way in to find like, what is the pain? What is the wound? And then we just explore that and actually discover, and even challenge, like, is that really true? Is it totally true? Is it always true? And as soon as they can start to believe that there's something other than that, which I would call a lie or a false belief, right? About that sense of worth or of utility. And for men especially, I think like being useful is really important. It's kind of that masculine energy. And if we feel like we have no purpose or we're useless, that is a depressing place to be for men especially, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if we explore those things and then we can challenge those beliefs and maybe even discover way back, like, when did you first start believing this?
Mm-hmm.
And often it goes back to, childhood stuff,
Yeah.
which can be very profound to have some healing experiences
Mm-hmm.
around that. But then you go into the process of discovering, well, if that's not totally and entirely true, then what is true?
Mm-hmm.
And then they discover themselves their worth and their purpose.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful thing to witness and to sit with and to experience. And you do coaching as well,
Mm-hmm.
right? Do you talk with men in a similar state and like?
Yeah. You know what's interesting? I never like meant for it to be this way, but like 80% of my clients are women.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I definitely like, I've met with a lot of men, and I think, kind of this overly reductive solution is, like you said, okay, you're feeling useless, you're feeling worthless. Let's increase your usefulness,
Right.
Let's increase your self-worth. And how do we do that? Because there's a lot of ways to do that, but it's hard because when you're truly deeply depressed, like, a lot of things don't work because you're not operating at 100%.
Yeah.
And so to me, my focus with people that are going through that is, let's find one little strand of hope, one little thing that can work a little bit, and let's grow on that. You're not going to be happy tomorrow, probably, and so let's try to focus on the good you have. Let's try to me, gratitude is such an essential part of healing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm convinced it's pretty impossible to do it otherwise. And so I lean into that a little bit. And, with myself, I feel like my last breakup, even though it was the most heinous breakup I've ever gone through, I felt like I dealt with it better than any others.
Mm.
Hard to quantify. It was like worst breakup, best job of healing. I don't know, but I think part of the reason why I never got bitter, I never got resentful, I never wanted to give up on love was because I leaned into the gratitude of what we did have instead of fixating on what was broken or what didn't work out or why am I being rejected. And of course, those things initially sat with me, but I try to be really conscious of, let me not twist the narrative just so I can sleep at night. Let me just call this what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think that's a beautiful part of healing, actually, is embracing the pain, the part that sucks, that hurts. And it's like, it's there. Because so often we want to run away from that. And then it, we suppress or repress it, and then it depresses us.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It'll find us again.
Yeah, for sure. What about with the women you work with? That's, that's the majority. Do you find that there are some just common themes that come up a lot for?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of women really struggle with just dating men or being with men that mistreat them and not feeling good enough or worthy enough to find something better or to leave that situation, or even once they've left, to feel like they actually deserve a guy that treats them better. And it's tough because if that's their main experience, and like you said, it often goes back to, their relationship with their dad and with their brothers. And so a lot of them just have this opinion that this is just how men are, and men suck, and men are abusive, and men are demeaning. And so they're just kind of like, I'm sure good guys exist, but they don't find me. They don't exist for me. And again, it's that false narrative, but it's so hard when you're just stuck inside of it. Even a lot of times, even intellectually, you're like, listen, I get it. I know there are good guys out there, but for whatever reason, I'm not finding them. And for whatever reason, I don't feel worthy of them, even though I know I'm worthy, Like, when you're in that headspace, it's so hard to see it clearly.
Well, I think it's important that you said in that headspace, or to say like, I know this or that, but do you like know it here? And
Yeah.
that to me is like such a big leap,
Yeah.
to be like,
yeah.
I know the right answers, but do I actually feel
Yeah.
of my worth or of a belief that there are good men out there or women, right?
Yeah.
Whichever, because you're in the dating pool right now. Is that right? Like
I'm in the deep end.
you're in the deep end.
Yeah. Yeah. You know those pools that are like suspiciously deep, like 12
like dark
feet.
at the
Yeah. Your ears start popping. Yeah.
Okay. Are you finding, I guess I'm curious, like what you see with women and some of the struggles that maybe they have, because you went right to relationship with men. Do you see with yourself, like, is there sort of, are there any beliefs that you've started to form around the women that are out there or what that relationship might look like?
Tried really hard to not harden myself.
Good.
And here's what I try to lean on is I've been with some absolutely like amazing, wonderful women that I would have given the world to be with. It just didn't work out, or they didn't want it back, or whatever. And so the fact that I've had that makes me like eternally hopeful.
Yeah.
Right. And because I've dated so much, I feel like I know that like humanity is this insane spectrum of behaviors and personalities. And so I try not to generalize, like I might be able to say, yeah, 80% of the girls I go out do this and say this and this has happened to them. But even if that's true, that's not 100%, and I'm sure the numbers in my head are not accurate. They're just what I think, what I feel, but that's such a nuanced question. I would say, one of my biggest struggles is you often meet girls that are amazing and they have all the things you want, but they're so emotionally not ready to love a good guy, right? They think they're ready for a relationship, but they're not ready to date a guy that treats them really well. And they would never be able to even articulate that, right? Because you'd sound like a crazy person. You're like, yeah, I don't want to date like nice guys that treat me well.
Yeah.
I'd rather a jerk, But a lot of them literally on their healing journey aren't there yet.
Yeah.
And so a guy that is always going to be there, isn't contentious, isn't going to gaslight them. All those good things those guys do, they like it, but they don't associate that with romantic feelings because all their exes that treated them horribly, they still have weird soul ties to them and they're romantically connected to them through some poor behaviors. So, sometimes you meet girls and they're everything you want, but they're not gonna marry a good guy yet.
That's interesting. Do you think there's the why behind that, right? Is I wonder what the deep down belief is about that. And is it maybe that I don't actually deserve that? Is it maybe that sometimes we actually gravitate towards what is familiar because it feels safer than something. So it might just be the conditioning.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know how to be in relationship with someone who's not these other things because that's been my track record. And so there's kind of a familiarity and a safety, even though it's maybe abusive or maybe, just terrible behavior or whatever, or like the typical toxic masculinity, but it's like, well, at least I know what that is. And so I feel safer around that. And then I'm willing to be in relationship with that. But this other thing, like that feels scarier because what if they actually really see me fully?
Well, the stakes are way higher.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
When you're dating somebody that you ultimately don't want to end up with, like the stakes are so low.
Right. Yeah, it's not as risky.
And in the back of your head, you're like, I can easily leave whenever I want. and not get hurt because this person isn't that great anyway,
Yeah.
you know? But when you're with somebody that like treats you like royalty and just brings everything to the table, all of a sudden it's like, I'm going to get found out.
Yeah.
You know,
Can be dysregulating.
Yeah. It can be, you can just feel so emotionally naked because you're like, man, this is the first time I've felt this. And so if I ruin it, that's going to be devastating. And so I'll just preemptively self-sabotage, you know?
Yeah.
But I don't think people think that, like, I don't think it's that calculated.
No, not at a conscious level.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But it's it's quite the minefield. Yeah.
So how long ago was that breakup that you mentioned?
It was about 2 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Any more serious relationships since then, or just still in the pool?
Not, I mean, I'm definitely in the pool. Not serious. I've had, you know, some little, I hate the word situationship, but it's just what they are, you know? Yeah, a lot of times I've been in, you know, a handful of these, you know, you've been on 7, 8, 9 dates and you're hanging out for a month or two and you're just kind of feeling each other out to see, like, are we actually compatible? We obviously like spending time together, but do we actually want the same things?
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I've had a handful of those.
Yeah. Earlier in our conversation, you mentioned that you feel pretty, I can't remember the word you used, but you felt pretty like whole in a lot of ways.
Secure.
Secure? Was that the word? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to hear a little bit about your journey of getting there, of where you feel like what was the work to get there?
I think it was a lot of just being dragged through the mud and then realizing I'm still okay. I'm still here.
Is that specific to in relationship with, or is it just in general?
Just in general, like there's been a lot of rejection, there's been a lot of heartbreak, there's been a lot of like trials that were quite self-inflicted, you know? And so I think I just kind of humbled myself, you know? But all the while I had a pretty healthy like self-worth and self-confidence.
Mm-hmm.
But it's weird. It's like two parts lived in me. There was a part of me that was really confident and was like, yeah, like I'm good at sports and I'm semi to pretty good looking and I'm kind of smart and I'm pretty funny. And there was all these things about myself that I loved and was aware of, right? But then there was kind of the other side of me that was like, but you're bad at relationships, or at least you're too picky, or you can't find one, or you always get rejected, or whatever. You know, you're bad with money. You don't have a great like career trajectory. You know, I like waited tables for like 10 years when I was trying to figure things out and trying to, you know, grow the podcast. And so there are different voices in my head. And I think after, you know, my career started to go in a better place, financially started to go in a better place, relationships, I realized weren't always my fault. A lot were circumstantial. A lot were because of the state of life the women were in.
Mm-hmm.
I think these various domains of my life just started to show me that all these things weren't my fault. And that I was just on a journey and that my journey was different than other people's. Yeah. And I think some insecurity I had for a lot of years was that I was behind. Right. I was, you know, all my friends were married. Mm-hmm. All my friends had kids. All my friends had more money than me. And so I'm like, how can I feel great about myself? You know, yeah. How can you? You know?
Yeah, no, I heard in that like, comparison right at the end there. But prior to that, the meanings of all those things, right? Like there was meaning attached to all of the negatives.
Yeah.
And to let go of those and be like, oh, maybe it's not all my fault. Because that's our default is to be like, something went wrong. Must have been because I'm this or that or not enough or whatever, right? And so that's kind of the frame that I think of when it comes to our progression, is identifying what are the meanings that we've attached to, the events that we felt were negative or bad. And they almost always come back to at the core, our sense of worth. And if we have a secure sense of worth, whatever circumstance happens, like it still can feel sad. It can still, you might feel angry, whatever, like the emotion can still come, but it doesn't like rock us to the core.
Yeah. It's way more
right?
tenable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, and I think part of it, even in just the last year or so, as this specific domain of my life, podcasting and coaching and doing everything that I've ever wanted to do has sort of come together. I've felt so deeply within my purpose, it's much harder to be sad.
Yeah.
It's much harder to be depressed or have low self-esteem, because I'm like, nah, bro, I'm deep in this. Like, this is my purpose. This is why I'm alive. And I think for a lot of years, I felt a little rudderless, and I felt like I know what I want my purpose to be, but I'm not there, and I'm not even close, and I don't know if I'll get there, and I don't know if people believe in me, all these things. And now I'm kind of like, yeah, people believe in me. I believe in myself. I'm here. And so I think, and I wish when I was younger, I could have just given myself a little bit more grace to be like, dude, you're looking for your purpose. It's okay.
Yeah.
And your purpose is way different than your friends or your roommates or your sisters. It's all, and it's funny, I love talking to younger guys and that are, frustrated with their lack of progression or where they're at in life. And I'll just tell them, I'll be like, bro, I would give a limb to be 23, like you might not be where you want to be at 23, but what you do have is the wonderful gift of youth, so be patient with yourself and give yourself grace, because this is really your first attempt at being an adult,
Yeah.
Do you feel like you're good at self-forgiveness?
Self-forgiveness. Ooh, yeah. That's been, that has been probably one of the biggest areas of change for me, is to be able to do that. For me, it comes with the belief of worth, which we touched on a little bit, but I often felt like imperfection diminished my worth. Yeah. And if you have a belief like that, you're you're destined to feel,
because you're always going to experience imperfection.
Exactly. Yeah. So that was a big moment for me to realize first that I had been holding myself to a standard of perfectionism, and that any flaw, any mistake, it just meant that, like, okay, I guess I'm worth less. And then when I feel, I keep saying when I feel worthless, then how do I show up in life? How do I interact with the people that matter to me? It just radiates in every way. And coming to realize that, and to believe that I am of infinite worth at the core, and that there's room for mistakes, and that in fact imperfection is part of the experience, and it's here for a reason, and it's actually a profound teacher to us. It's like necessary, you know. The mistakes are the school that we're in to progress, to grow, to learn. So to have all of that shift absolutely gave me a capacity to forgive myself a lot more generously, compassionately, and quickly. But I'd say it wasn't just through getting reps in of trying, because we all know when we're kidding ourselves, and I think I tried a lot of times to just be like, to talk myself into, like, no, I'm okay. But deep down, I still have that fear or that pain of, actually, I just don't feel like I'm enough, And so to get to that level, to that depth, and challenge that belief and find the truth there, that just changes, every other aspect and every relationship, and just the energy, the radiation that comes off of me, and off of, and what I feel from others. And I can see and feel others more deeply from that place of like feeling more a sense of my own worth, and not allowing it to get attached to anything that is temporary, that is material, even, career success or not success or whatever. There's so many things that are tempting to attach worth to, but to realize that it is untouchable by any of those things is like, it's so liberating and powerful.
Yeah.
What about for you?
Man, I feel like forgiving yourself in a way can be a lot harder than forgiving others, because when you forgive somebody else, you can still kind of separate yourself from them and be like, I need to draw boundaries. I do forgive you, but like, I can't have you in my life. You can't really do that with yourself, and I think forgiving somebody else, it can feel very much like, okay, I know the steps. I'll reach out to them, tell them I forgive them. Maybe I'll just say it to myself or say it in a prayer and to kind of relinquish that, let it go. But with yourself, it's easier to just kind of hold on to it a little bit and be like, well, this is evidence why like my life is in shambles because of this stupid thing I did, or because of how I reacted earlier. And it's just hard to take the time to be like, but bro, like, I forgive you. And it also just feels weird talking to yourself. Like, I haven't really done it seriously, but when you're doing like inner child work, like talking to your younger self, like that's so weird and vulnerable because you're like, I'm talking to myself, So I think it feels a little uncomfortable, a little unnatural to be like, I forgive you, or if you want to speak in third person, Taylor, I forgive you. That feels weird.
Yeah.
But I actually wanted to read this quote to you. I saw this online, and this actually annoys me when I see these quotes that are just proliferated everywhere, and there's no author. It's just, you look it up and it says like 10 different people wrote it. But and it's really more of like this image, and it says, when God says there's one more person I need you to forgive, and he brings you a mirror. Like, I love that image, thinking like, sometimes we think, well, I've done all the work, all my relationships are good, I have no resentments, I've made amends. But it's like, have you done that with yourself? Have you made amends with yourself?
That's beautiful. And that's interesting. I hadn't heard that quote, but something I experienced and that I now facilitate is an actual experience with that, like in real life.
Yeah. Tell me about it.
There's a process that we go through, and sometimes it goes to the inner child. Sometimes it doesn't. It might just be, we're just getting to somebody's like deepest pain, basically, and we're exploring that and kind of going through a process of identifying what's the feeling around it and what's the message. A lot of times we have these pent up, stored up emotions that we haven't actually allowed ourselves to feel. And emotions aren't meant to be held; they're meant to be felt and released. And so we just give opportunity. And I got to experience this firsthand too. I was given the space to identify, and some of this was around the that feeling of like, am I worthy of unconditional love? And that was a big moment for me in a process like this, where I realized that was the pain point. And what's the feeling around that? And there was a lot of sadness at that thought. And to be able to just have an ugly cry around that, there was like this cathartic release process. Well, then you get to discover what is true. And this one isn't specifically around forgiveness, but it is just around facing yourself and finding compassion and grace and truth. And so, being able to claim like, I am worthy of love. and I can say it to somebody, and I can say it to the facilitator that I'm with. I'm like, yeah, and then I turn around and somebody's holding up a mirror and I see myself.
Mm.
And it's like, can I now say that to myself?
Yeah.
And there's like this moment of,
Right.
like, wow. And that's sometimes been the hardest moment for men that I've taken through a similar process, when they turn around and see themselves, and just a new wave of emotion hits.
Yeah.
And then they get to look in their own eyes and say, yeah, whether it's I forgive you, or I love you, or you do belong, you are worthy of love, whatever it may be, whatever that, when you get to that core wound, the truth is usually some form of the opposite, like whatever that pain is, the healing and the truth and the light. It's the light. It's like the shadow and the light, right? Like we believe, and we've lurked in this shadow, and the light is just its opposite.
Yeah.
And we get to step into that light, and it is so powerful.
Yeah. How do you personally try to walk around with that level of gentleness for yourself? Is it easy at this point?
I mean, no, there's yes and no. It's easier than it was, for sure. But there's always the coming back. There's always the things that brush up against those insecurities or whatever. But it's just so much easier to come back and to not get stuck in the spiral of like, yeah, that sucks. And now I'm going to sit here in my shame or in my fear or whatever. And it's very much like in meditation practices, right? Like your mind wanders and you just bring it back, and you don't judge yourself for your mind wandering, right? You're not like, oh, I suck at this. And I hear people say that, like, oh, I suck at meditation, because I'm like, there's no sucking at meditation. Like, it's literally just a practice, and anything we've never done or practiced, we're not going to be pros at right out of the gate. So there is sort of a principle there of like just coming back. But I think probably at a deeper level, there has just been some healing and some change to where the things that used to really trigger and set me off or set me in a spiral, they just don't have the same impact they used to, because I'm like, oh, I remember that. Yeah, I remember that used to be my wound. And if I still believed what I used to believe, I would probably really have a hard time with that. Because I don't believe that anymore, I'm like not as affected, And it doesn't mean I'm like, I've reached complete wholeness. Right. But I think, like you shared earlier, you reach a level of security that you're not as easily like taken down,
Yeah, yeah. I love the metaphor I always use is like, whatever thing is triggering for me, to me, when it happens, it's this wave that crashes over me, and sometimes it's a big wave, and sometimes it takes me under, and it's violent, and I got salt in my eyes, and I got whiplash, and I kind of get tossed onto the shore, but it still doesn't drown me, and it used to feel like I'm caught in the undertow, and I don't know if I'll make it,
right. Right.
But now it's kind of like, I know this is part of it. This is a wave that's going to crash. And sometimes it's pretty simple and I ride the wave. And sometimes feels like a tsunami, and I gotta wait till this massive, massive wave is done with me, but just having that mindset and being like, I can handle it. Yeah. I can withstand it. And it might be way more painful than I had hoped, but it's not going to bury me anymore.
Yeah. No, it just reminded me of one I had just recently. One of the triggers that came up for me is I'll sometimes feel like in a situation of overstimulation, there's a lot going on, there's a lot of demands, and I feel like I'm not in control. That just can set me up. Like, I just can feel really triggered by that. And I think that probably goes back to that childhood environment I grew up in too, right? Of just feeling like I don't have any say, I don't have control. That's scary to me. And I remember having all the feelings, that it wasn't like I didn't have to feel any of that, but to have like the awareness or having had the experiences and some of the tools to figure out why it's there. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, I think here's what I'm feeling. And I want to just like shut down. I want to escape. I want to get away. I want to numb out. I want to just silence all of this and not be demanded of and just like have my space, right? Um, and so I will reactively do that, and I'm like, that's probably not like the most mature and healed and secure way to handle that situation. But in the aftermath of being able to go, okay, I can now have some space to figure out like, why did I act that way? Why was that such a big deal to me? Because that's always for me an indicator that I've hit maybe a wound or unresolved trauma or whatever. Is like if I have an overreaction to something, right? It's like, why did that set me off? And it was not a big deal, but it felt huge to me inside, right? And I'm like, well, that's probably because that was little wounded Mike like throwing a tantrum because he really hated that.
Yeah.
And why? What was it, right? So in that scenario, I was like, oh, I felt like I didn't have control and I felt overwhelmed. And I can look at that now with compassion and be like, I know, I can see why you felt that way, you know? So it's not like judging myself or beating myself up for like retreating or for wanting to numb out, or, you know what I mean? There's like a lot of grace in that because I can see that it didn't come from just being like a bad person or whatever. It's this wounded part of me that was trying to protect itself.
Yeah.
And I can say, oh, okay, I can see that. And I can offer some grace and forgiveness and like, what's the truth then? Because if I was believing that I was out, you know, didn't have control, is that actually true? Or did it just feel that way? Okay. Yeah, actually, you know, and is control actually what we're going for? You know, is that the thing that is going to make me feel good or whole? Oh, maybe it's not. Okay. What is it? Well, yeah, I want to feel like I have a say and I have agency and I can choose. Are all those things true? Yes. I'm like, okay, let me get grounded back to what is true.
Right.
And then I can go and repair whatever damage I caused to myself or others from there and say, hey, I realize I overreacted. I'm sorry. Here's what came up for me. And because my wife is in this similar space, like we can talk about this stuff pretty acutely, you know, and get into it. And that's been beautiful to be in relationship like that. But then the repair happens. And I think that repair, redemption, like forgiveness, so important in the healing work. If I don't think it's possible without, you know, like that is fundamental and core to healing. It's not just, oh, I had a breakthrough and now I can forget everything in the past. It's like, no, now I can repair.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have any additional thoughts on that?
I don't think so. I think you covered it just beautifully.
Cool.
I wanted to ask you, you know, I just listened to this podcast with you and your wife, and I could tell, I've never met your wife, but I could tell you guys have a really rich, robust relationship. Is that accurate?
Yes.
I would love for you to describe to me sort of what you feel like the love you have for her looks like. What does it feel like?
The love that we have, I'm struggling to find words to put to it. But I can tell you that it has evolved and grown in ways that I didn't even know were possible. Because when we first got married, it was not the love that it is now, you know? And it was beautiful then.
Yeah.
To be able to see each other through some of the hardest stuff, and not just the things that happen in the moment of a relationship, but then to peel back the layers and go, relationships with caretakers, with parents, with siblings, with, you know, you get to know somebody so intimately, and you see each other's weakness as well all the time. You see each other's strengths, and that's beautiful. And that's, you know, that's the typical marriage life cycle. You know, you start just seeing each other's strengths. And then you get a few years in and all the weaknesses come up. And then it's like, whoa, I didn't realize, what I was getting into here.
Yeah, I thought I married a perfect person.
Right, exactly. And that always made me feel super great about myself. And now you're showing things back to me that I'm not feeling so good about myself anymore. It's that reflected sense of self that you've probably talked about in the past, right? Like, just how does this person make me feel? And then that starts to crumble. And then you get into the real work of, do we continue to choose to love each other? And then that chosen love is a love that's so much deeper because it is inclusive of your flaws and your weakness. And to me, it comes back to this unconditional kind of love. It's like, I love you not just because of how funny and smart and awesome and clever and sweet and kind and whatever. It's like, I love you, and I've seen you in like the muck of, and I'm familiar with your wounds now. And I've seen, I have seen my wife's inner child, and it was so precious. And also there's like some tragedy around it and we all experience that, right? We all experience some forms of wounds or trauma or whatever, even if we had a great upbringing, right? Like, we all at some point experience something that was so overwhelming to us as a child that we came up with a way to cope with it and formed a belief about it that usually is directed back towards the self of not being enough or not being wanted or accepted or loved. And so those wounds, I think we all carry to some degree or another. And I see that come out in my wife from time to time. And I'm like, oh, and there's just nothing but love though for her in that. And then of course there are the times where I feel maybe judged or like I want to go into being defensive. And I have to just identify that within myself. Literally happened this morning. We had a confrontation where she felt like I wasn't showing up for her in the way that she hoped I would have, or that she expected.
Was she wrong?
It's a good question.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I can explain it a little bit if you're curious.
No, I'm kind of joking, but I think the reason I said that is it's almost like it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
If she's right or wrong, that's what she felt.
Totally. Yeah. And I could say, was I right or wrong to do what I did? And there's one argument that says, yeah, that was okay. And then another that's like, no, you shouldn't have done that. And we actually discussed that very thing. We were like, this could have played out different ways, but it just touched on a nerve for her. And then I was trying to hold space for her, but then I was getting into defensiveness a little bit and kind of explaining like, well, here's my rationale and here's what I would have done if you were in the other, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And eventually it just got to like, it took us a little bit of talking and working through it, but we got down to like, she was feeling triggered because of she wanted to feel wanted. And that's what at the core, what was happening. It wasn't the circumstances. It wasn't because, I didn't come out and take care of this thing. And, it was like, she identified that. She's like, I just wanted to feel wanted.
Yeah.
And it was a beautiful awareness moment. And then it, apologizing for like, I didn't do this or do that. It didn't really matter anymore. We just got to the truth of what was underneath it.
Right.
Why was the trigger there? And it was that belief or that feeling, that yearning. And then I got to say, just speak truth to that. Like, of course I want you.
Yeah.
and I want you to want me. And it was just this beautiful, like, we got to this resolution that wasn't just like, I mean, we did talk about the circumstances and like, okay, here's how we should handle that moving forward. But it didn't end there, it got to the core, and it was a beautiful moment.
Yeah. What a cool opportunity to connect.
Yeah.
And like, I feel like so many couples, like that one stupid little disagreement or fight just builds and builds because it's small, they don't decide we don't really need to resolve this.
Yeah.
Right. So you're a little pissed, I'm a little pissed, but we'll get over it. But then it just bleeds into your life.
That's such an important insight. And one of the things that my wife and I talk about is having a very low tolerance for discord between us.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean we don't have confrontations or places we are misaligned or disagree or whatever. That comes up all the time. But there's a feeling of disconnection that we have a low tolerance for.
Yeah.
So when those moments come up, sometimes it's like we just agree to, yeah, you do that, I'll do this, and there's a feeling of like mutual love and respect, right?
Mhm.
We're not leaving with like the grudge or the resentment or whatever. But if resentment comes up, if disconnection, contention, if any of that comes up, like we do not allow that to exist for any longer than it has to. Like we will, so many times, like as soon as the kids are in bed or off to school or whatever, it's like, hey, I'm kind of feeling this. And we just dig in, and it's like, it's hard, but it's like so beautiful and so worth it. And I feel like we've gotten used to it to the point now where it doesn't feel very hard anymore,
right?
Even though it's not comfortable, but it's like, okay, yeah, let's figure this out because we want to feel a certain way.
And there's probably a lot of things that you guys haven't had to consistently rehash because you got into it when it happened.
Exactly.
You resolved it when it happened. And so you don't have these ongoing, like, you hear so many men and women talk about their significant other like they're just these pesky appendages. You know what I mean?
Yeah, what a tragedy.
Yeah. What an absolute tragedy. Like, you'll be hanging out with guys and they'll get a call from their wife and they'll be like,
yeah,
here we go. Like, she's going to be bugging me about something, and vice versa. And anytime I see that, it breaks my heart because I'm like, it doesn't have to be this way.
Totally.
You know? And I love the idea that no fight, no issue is too small to try and be like, hey, let's sit down and try to fix this now.
Yeah.
You know, like maybe I'm bugged that you made me a sandwich and you put mustard on it, and I don't like mustard. Something so trivial, but it's like, if it bugs me, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, because what would that bring up? What would that trigger? Oh, well, she knows this, but she did it. So was it on purpose or was it just negligence? And in either case, I'm not feeling very loved or seen or cared about. And so, that's what's going on. And are there a whole bunch of pieces of evidence that support this belief of like, my wife actually doesn't really know or care about me. And that would suck to be in relationship and believe that about your partner for an extended period of time. Right. When in reality, all those little bits of evidence, it's like our brain looks for ways to validate what we believe, whether it's positive or negative. Right. And so if I have a belief like that, and maybe it was because of something that happened, and then I'm just building on that. Right. If I allow that belief to build and to fester and to like grow, then it creates those walls, those chasms between the people that we want to be the closest with. Right. And so, when those beliefs come up, like we dive in and figure them out and tackle them, challenge them. And then you can always, on the flip side, find evidence that supports the opposite belief. Right. Oh, what's the evidence that I am cared about and seen and my wife knows me? Oh, there's like a mountain of evidence over here, but I was focused on these things because that's what my brain was looking for.
Right. She knows I like mayonnaise and she put it on there.
Right.
Because she loves me. Yeah. Yeah. What do you and your wife do when you feel like you've got to have some sort of relationship rejuvenation or reset? When, you have 5 kids, you guys both are really busy and are doing a lot of different projects and everything. Do you have moments where you're like, babe, we gotta resuscitate things?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. And I think there are several little things that we do to maintain. And then there's some occasional like bigger things that we'll do for like a big, like, reset. But daily connection is like a way to just do the maintenance side of the relationship. And so we will always, almost always, right, we'll take time apart in the morning to just have little time together. It doesn't have to be super long. Maybe it's just 10-15 minutes. Check in with each other. We like to say a prayer together. We like to talk about what's the day going to look like, and then the same thing, a little more time in the evening, like after the kids are to bed. We haven't made it like a hard, fast rule, but we try to be done with all of our miscellaneous stuff, because after the kids to bed, it's like, oh, now I can finally, do this or do that or whatever. Right. But we try to be done with that stuff early enough that we still have some time to be together, and we always go to bed at the same time. There were times early in our marriage where, I'm kind of a night owl. She's kind of a
Mhm.
early bird.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
she would go to bed and I would still be up and I would just be like hanging out, watching TV or whatever.
Mhm.
We don't do that anymore.
Mm.
Like that
How
was,
did you adjust?
I,
I'm just such a night owl myself. I've
yeah,
even sometimes in relationships, I'm like, man, yeah, you're welcome to go to bed, but I'm gonna be up for another 2 hours.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, it was an evolution, honestly, over many
Mhm.
years. And she's adjusted to go to bed a little later
Okay.
and
Yeah.
I've gone a little earlier.
Okay.
So it's just been a pretty natural process of just meeting in the middle.
Mhm.
It wasn't like we were like, okay, from now on, it needs to be this. It's
Yeah.
just been an evolution. So those are some of the maintenance things. And my wife is really good about just remembering to say I love you
Mhm.
throughout the day.
Yeah.
And she'll do it like all the time.
Mhm.
And sometimes I'm almost like I need to like be consciously receiving that
Mhm.
because if you hear something so often, you can almost start to tune it
Right,
out a little
right,
bit.
right.
And so I'm like, no, I hear that and I receive it,
Yeah.
Um, and then there are times where I am kind of like, oh yeah, I love you too. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, that was actually a nice bid for connection and a
Mhm.
sweet thing to say. And I just am so used to it that I didn't actually like feel it,
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's that too. But yeah, the bigger things that we do, I mean, we do occasionally we'll just set out a day where we're like we're gonna go and I mean we've gone and done like a couples massage and lunch together.
Mhm.
Amazing. It was like a date basically,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like but it wasn't a typical like Friday night date night. We go to
Mhm.
dinner and we do the same
A
thing.
little novelty.
Yeah, a little different, a
Yeah.
little like something kind of new, interesting, keeping it creative. So dates, but that kind of explore, what is a different way for us to have an experience together. I mean, we went and did like axe throwing one
Yeah.
time and we had never done that together. It was just like this fun, random
Yeah.
novelty thing. And
But just creating memories together.
totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we still do the more regular dinner night experiences. And those are awesome too, because we
Mhm.
just get to talk and go deep. And, but then couples trips that's been something that we did not do for like most of our marriage because we always had a baby that was like too little that we felt like, oh, we can't leave for very
Mhm.
long or
Yeah.
a nursing baby or whatever. But just recently that has become more of a thing and that's been awesome.
Yeah,
So yeah, planning and executing a couples trip or getaway has been awesome. And then just the work that we do together, which is new. I mean, it's only been the last 3 or 4 years that we've actually like worked together on stuff.
Mhm.
But planning and doing like a couples event, or we've done a couple of like date night type experiences, but we'll have a presenter come and talk about something interesting and we'll provide a meal and just have an evening together where it kind of goes deep and
That's
we
cool.
get into some fascinating
yeah.
topics and whatever, and doing that and so creating things like that together has been really cool.
Mhm.
Sometimes that has brought up challenges too, right? When you start to work together and it's you see a different side of each
Mhm.
other and what role am I going to play? What role are you going to play?
Yeah.
So that's created a little bit of those moments of kind of brushing up against like the hard things. But then again, those are just opportunities to like go deeper and understand what's really going on and then have the repair and the compassion and find the right way to move forward. So yeah, I'm curious for you when it comes to how old are you now?
38.
Okay,
Mhm.
dating at 38.
Mhm.
I remember when in my dating years, I had kind of a set of rules for myself of
Yeah.
like how I would, if I met someone and how I would approach and what would our first date be. And then what would I do from there? It was like very programmed out, right? Where it's like, I don't want the first date to be too long, but also not too short and all the things. How do you go about dating as a 38-year-old in Utah?
Carefully. I think it's funny. I definitely have had periods where I operated that way. I think over the years, I've become very flexible and have tried to just read the moment, and read the girl.
Yeah.
Right. Because every girl has a very different experience and wants different things. And so I try to make it clear that all options are available, like if we want to just have ourselves a 30-minute date and we go and we get hot chocolate and we talk and then we go our separate ways, we can do that, but I want it to be open to, but if it's going really well, like let's go for a walk. Let's watch a movie. Like I try not to have too many rules for myself.
Yeah.
It feels less romantic. It feels less fun. And also because dating can be so hard and exhausting, like I also want to enjoy it, So even if the date doesn't go well or doesn't go amazing like you hoped, I want to just be like, well, I connected with somebody tonight and it was fun,
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't have a lot of rules for myself. I have a lot of, I would call best practices, just based off of the data I've accumulated
Experience,
over
yeah.
the years. But yeah, and I'll talk to other people. I feel like most people have some pretty hard and fast dating rules. But I really don't. I just know like what things tend to work and what things tend to not work. But you could look back at all of my relationships and they were approached in fairly different ways, And so I try not to be like maybe this sounds weird, but I was going to say I try not to be like the arbiter of my own destiny, but to be like, you know what? Destiny is going to happen, And so I play a big role in it, but who am I to say like first dates need to be this, or like once we've been dating this long, then we'll be exclusive. I'm like, we'll see. I try to just trust my gut, and my gut usually has a pretty decent idea of what's going on.
Yeah.
Does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. No, it's great. And I'm also curious, you asked me about the kind of love that I've had in my relationship. I'm curious about the kind of love that you are maybe seeking or looking for. Yeah.
Yeah. I would say the good news, this is good news and bad news. The good news is I feel like I've been to the mountaintop, right? So I feel like I've experienced a kind of deep love that is everything you want, right? It's soul expanding. It's joy inducing. It's just, it's everything, it's one of those things that revitalizes life and reminds you why you're a human and brings a shimmer back into your life, right? I've experienced it and I've felt it. And so that's the good news. The bad news is because I've felt that rare thing, I'm not really open to anything else, right? I'm not open to a lesser love, a more mediocre existence, right? And I realize that, and this is what I'll tell people I'm coaching, because a lot of times when you get out of a relationship, you were dumped, your heart's broken, and you're like, but what we had was so good, it was so special. How do I ever find that again? I try to remind people that you can't compare people, like no one's going to be like my ex. She was so unique. And because we were so connected and everything, our connection was so unique. And so what I do want to compare is the feelings, right? The level of love, the level of joy, the level of excitement when I got a text from her, when I knew she was coming over. Those are feelings I want to compare, but I want to understand that those are going to arrive in very different packages and they're going to have different colors and different shapes. And because I've felt it a couple times, I know that it's duplicatable, right? And sometimes we get this scarcity mindset with love because it is a precarious thing and it's so like heart-rending to lose it. And so it's hard to have an abundance mindset with love, I mean, even for yourself, think about like worst case scenario, tragically, if you lost your wife, how would you go about seeking love again?
Yeah.
It feels impossible. But my answer is, what's the alternative? you know?
Yeah.
I have to continue to believe in love. And for me, I think maybe the underlining thing that defines the kind of love I'm looking for is someone that just infuses you with light, you know? They just they bring out parts of you that maybe were dead, or they bring out parts of you that you forgot about or that had been laying dormant for years, and they make you enjoy parts of life that you didn't even know were enjoyable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because the beautiful thing about falling in love and meeting someone and growing that love is you get to live life again. You know, you get to go. You've never been to McDonald's with this girl, right? Now you get to go with her and you get to experience what does she like to get at McDonald's? I went out with a girl the other day. We've been out a few times. She didn't realize she loved Thousand Island sauce. She didn't really know what it was. She's like, I know I like this taste, but she's like, now I know I like Thousand Island sauce. And it was just this funny, like cute little moment where I'm like, that's what's so great about connecting with someone new is you get to experience every little thing about life again, you know, like that's why it's so intoxicating.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I thought it was funny that you said there's the good news and the bad news when the bad news is actually good news.
Right.
That you're not going to settle for like
Yeah,
a shallow
it's
connection
just
moving forward, right?
that I call it bad news because it makes my plight a little bit more difficult, you know?
Yeah.
And ultimately I view it as a good,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. But yeah, it's makes it challenging.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I appreciate you sharing that because it's it just brought to remembrance all of those aspects of my relationship. Because I kind of went right to the like we see each other the good and the struggles and the hard and the strengths and the weaknesses, and there's still this chosen love there. And that to me feels like a very transcendent kind of love. It's a very Christ-like kind of love, this unconditional kind of love, and you get all of that stuff too.
Yeah.
And you spoke to it so beautifully, so thank you.
Yeah. And then, add on top of that, like the beauty of having children. It's like you get to live again and again and again.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
totally.
because and I see it on a really small scale with like my nieces and nephews or like my young cousins or whatever, where it's like, man, I get like, they're so unbelievably excited to like go to a park or something. And it's like, I kind of stopped caring about going to the park a long time ago.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden it's fun again.
Yeah.
Right. All of a sudden I get excited because we found one with a big slide, and you just get to relive everything. Yeah. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See with fresh eyes.
I mean, last night I went to we had my buddy's birthday, and like 6 or 7 of us went out to dinner, and my one buddy came with his 2-year-old daughter, and she was just laughing and laughing and laughing at ice, and was like so excited to play with a straw, and was just, she's kind of this funny, like outgoing, extroverted little girl. And so she was just like kept tapping us and making faces, and she was just so overwhelmed with joy for seemingly no reason. Right. And that's such a like revitalizing thing to be around,
Yeah. That's beautiful. That has been the case, just as a parent. Absolutely. And I was the funkle before being a parent, and that was the same deal. It just brought out the playfulness and just, hey, look at this ladybug, Right. And it's like there's this wonder and this excitement. And then I'm seeing it through those eyes too, and I'm like, this thing is incredible and beautiful, It's like, wow, like what a way to exist, just in complete awe of nature, of life, of joy, of these physical bodies that get to go down a slide or whatever, right? There's a psychologist, a professor, I think, of psychology named Dr. Keltner, and his whole body of work, a big piece of his work is around awe and how important and powerful being in a state of awe is for our mental, emotional, spiritual wellness.
Yeah.
And he just has all this cool research around being in states of awe. It's healing, it's connecting, it's rejuvenating, it's life-giving, it's powerful. That's such a cool concept.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And he says you don't have to go climb a mountain to be in a state of awe. It's literally, you could look at anything. I mean, you could take a breath and be like, oh, I can breathe right now. And a similar concept that another friend shared with me, and it was around gratitude that you mentioned earlier. And I just love this idea of, if you want to have a felt experience with gratitude, consider what you feel entitled to and root that out, and then see what gratitude feels like. Because you think about, what do I feel entitled to? What am I entitled to? And then when I start to really reflect on that, like, I feel entitled to feel comfortable right now. I feel entitled to be able to do, so many things, or even just to take my next breath. I feel entitled to that, but am I actually entitled to that?
Yeah.
And I go, wow, maybe I'm not. And then I take that next breath and go, that was a gift.
Yeah.
Like, what a beautiful concept, right? Without like judging or shaming. Like, that could go into like, oh, I don't deserve anything. It's not that. It's just like, what do I take for granted is maybe another way to put it, right? It's a beautiful concept.
Yeah, I love that, because I'll find myself seeking moments of awe, right?
Yeah.
And to me, it doesn't matter if they're small. I will often experience that, like with finding a new song.
Yeah.
And you're just driving in the car by yourself and you're like, dude, what am I listening to? Run it back, like those are really cool moments.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, dude, any other questions? Any other things you're curious about or you want to get into?
I am curious, if you're open to it. First, just a not very deep question, or maybe it is. The name of your podcast. What's the meaning of that?
I did want it to be a little cryptic.
Oh, okay. Spoiler.
But, no. But I wanted, like
it's of stone and clay.
Yeah, of stone and clay. So to me, I wanted it to be kind of this reminder that, like, most things in life are temporary, but there are some things that are permanent and eternal even, right? Yeah. But to me, it's kind of this cycle. It's like a stone feels really permanent, but a stone can be cracked. A stone can be grinded to dust, but then it can be reformed into clay and become stone again. And so it's just kind of this thing that sort of reminds me that we can be broken, but we will heal, and we'll become stone again. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
My other question, and this one, see where you want to go with it. I spoke to a couple of those beliefs or wounds that I've held, like around my voice mattering or not, unconditional love, feeling like it had to be earned or deserved, or I'm curious if you have kind of an awareness of maybe what are some of those that come up for you that you brush up against every so often. Do you know what those are?
Yeah, I think, like you said, I think we all at various times struggle with that thought, like maybe I'm not good enough, but it's such a vague thought.
Yeah.
It covers too much almost, right? It's like, what am I not good enough for? Or, but I think as I've sort of been in this protracted period of singleness, we'll call it, it's been hard to not view it as, well, there must be a reason for it. There must be a reason, like I must be a little bit less than, or I must be doing something wrong. And again, it's the battle between the intellect and the heart, because my brain says, I know that's not true.
Right.
I know you're a deeply worthy soul. I know you bring so much to the table. But yeah, the other side comes in and says, well, if that was the case, wouldn't have you found somebody by now? Like, and so I think, yeah, at my core, the thing that really is maybe a point of fear or deep insecurity is like, will I really have all the things that I want and that I feel like I deserve one day? Because I sure don't have them now, and I haven't for years and years. And how do I reconcile that, right? How do I bridge the gap, that chasm between my brain and my heart,
Yeah.
you know? And there are good days and bad days, you know? And I'll tell you what, though, going back to the last really ugly cry I had was about this very thing. And I kind of had this spiritual moment where I felt like, and I'll be honest, when it comes to prayer, revelation, God speaking to you, whatever you want to call it, I've always struggled a little bit to feel a really precise answer or a precise voice. I have lots of friends that'll be like, yeah, God told me to do this. And I'm like, that's awesome. He never said that to me, you know? And I don't disbelieve them, but I've just had a different experience. And I think I have different gifts of the Spirit, right? But I think I've struggled with that. But in that moment of really, really intense agony related to loneliness and not having just not having the things I want, not having love in my life, not having a family, which has been heartbreaking for a lot of years. I got this really clear message from God that said, listen, Taylor, you can feel free to cry out to me and to really be hurt by all this, but you don't need to anymore, because I got you. You're going to have, not only are you going to have the things you want, you're going to have, it's going to be better than you thought it would be. And you can say what you want about God, about organized religion, about anything, but I felt that, deep in my sinews, man. It was something, and that was part of the reason why it was such an ugly cry, is because the tears started from that agony and that really heavy despondency I felt about being alone and not having the things I want. But then the tears sort of dovetailed into immense gratitude and just love, And I think that's part of why it's something I don't talk about a lot, because it's such a, I don't know how to surmise it very succinctly, but that's part of the reason why I feel so secure in myself.
Yeah.
Right? I feel like that's why I feel so eternally hopeful. It's because I had that experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's powerful.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
I love where that went, because when you were first talking about not having the things that you wanted, this, relationship of love and the family, and it was framing it like that's the whole purpose, or that's where I'll feel whole.
Yeah.
Is when I have those things, which are not actually completely in your control.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so for you to, and it's okay to acknowledge that you want that and you don't have that yet, right? And so, and it's like the whole thing we've been talking about, you just encapsulated in that story of retelling that powerful moment where there was the pain of that, and then it wasn't like you challenged, well, is that what I need, or what? But it just came where the truth is, you belong to God, you're His, and He's got a plan for you, and then just the truth of that, eclipsing and overwhelming anything else, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And then you've got that anchor of your worth, and now of course there's still going to be some discomfort or maybe some pain around did that relationship work out or not, or whatever, but like that's not what your sense of worth and identity is anchored in anymore.
Yeah.
Right. It's
Yeah.
like that part of you is untouchable.
Yeah.
Of any circumstance.
Yeah.
And so to connect and commune with that is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. It was an absolutely sacred moment,
Yeah,
you know?
That's awesome.
And I've been saying this for years, but I think I finally, took a dose of my own medicine, but I think your happiness can't be predicated on things that are outside of your control.
Yeah.
And it can't be predicated on somebody else.
Yeah.
Like having a wife, having children, having all these things that I want. I can't even really explain how much I want them, right? But having those things, they have to be this beautiful, beautiful cherry on top of a cake that I've already made,
Yeah.
And I have to be happy with my cake, and I have to make it, and I have to find it beautiful and useful. And the cherry, maybe it sounds trite, but the cherry will bring more vibrancy and taste and beauty to that cake than I could have ever imagined. But I have to be happy with the cake by itself.
Yeah.
Yeah,
totally.
Yeah.
If I could share one thought too on when you talked about prayer, because I think that's so relatable, what you shared. And I found this really cool quote a few years ago, and I just want to share it because there's this theologian named, I think it's Roberta Bondi, who is researching all these ancient, sacred materials and records. And she just shared this thought on prayer. And she was like, I feel like we give such emphasis in our culture, in our time, as prayer being either a monologue where I speak to God and just say whatever, or a dialogue where I say words and then I expect to hear something back.
Yeah.
And she said, well, from what I've studied, our relationship with God and with prayer, it's like prayer is just one facet of that relationship. And that I'm not quoting it quite right, but she said, from what I understand, prayer is much more than just the words, but it is whether I can just be in God's presence. Like that's like the true meaning of prayer.
Yeah.
Can I just be in God's presence?
Yeah. Can I commune?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it doesn't need words. It doesn't need a voice or mind going one way or expecting one to come back. And I just love that because I also pretty rarely have heard words. I have had a few experiences like that and they were confusing, frankly, sometimes. I was like, wait, what? One time I felt like God said to leave my job, and I was like, oh, hang on, like, how's that going to work? Yeah. And I resisted it for quite a while, but then eventually it happened. But those are pretty rare. But more often my experiences with prayer and communion is literally just in stillness and in breath. Sometimes I'll go stand in the sunlight and just like let that light bask over me and just breathe. And it doesn't have to be anything verbalized. It's just felt, know, and that's for me is the best kind of prayer. Like I love it.
Yeah. I told a buddy of mine the other day who was telling me, he was confiding in me that he was really struggling to pray, period.
Yeah.
And to have the desire to pray. And I told him, tell God that.
Yeah.
And your prayer doesn't need to be, I loved what you said. I didn't even say this, but it doesn't even need to be words. I said, I gave him the advice of, it's fine to say, God, like, I got nothing to say.
Yeah.
I want to talk to you. I want to pray, but I don't have the desire to. I was like, that's a prayer, my guy.
Totally.
There's no manual for
or formalities, right? Like,
or what's accepted and what's not.
Yeah.
It's all accepted. But I love the idea of just being like, man, I don't have the bandwidth to verbalize what I'm feeling right now. Let me go just be with God. Let me commune with him. Let me try to feel his presence. Try to feel his like divine fellowship. I love the word fellowship. I feel like we always use it with, our brothers and other people, but I love the idea of God fellowshipping to us,
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. And I agree that there still is value in verbalizing, you know, having those thoughts and those words, and to have them just be so honest, so real. Some of my most powerful prayers have been the ones where I've just been like, I'm just mad right now.
Yeah.
You know, and you just come with that level of honesty. I think God is like, yes, like,
yeah,
let's talk.
Well, as if he didn't know that already.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Take away the formalities and just come to him with, I mean, a broken heart, an open heart, and a willingness to show where you're really at, because he knows it anyway. But it's like for us to come into in that honesty. And there's this phrase that I love, to boldly approach the throne of grace. And I think of like a boldness in coming with that level of honesty. And it's not like, oh, I have to be like like I have to get my life in order before I then go, or I have to feel better before I then go and try to commune. It's like you boldly come with where you're at and with honesty. And it's like, that's where real connection happens. Yeah.
100%. That's beautiful, man. Okay, dude, anything else? Any parting thoughts, questions?
I mean, we covered some good stuff. Yeah. You got any on your mind? Any for me?
I don't think so, man. I would love to, reconnect and, you know, maybe do one of these breathwork sessions with you, and
would love that.
See a little bit more into the things that you're really passionate about. I told you before the show, like, when it comes to breathwork and men's retreats and all these things you're doing, I think it's awesome stuff. I've just never really gotten involved. And so I feel like my questions aren't, they're just vague curiosities, but I'd love to, you know, have some firsthand experience to be able to really talk about it, you know.
I'd love for you to experience it. It's, these things, they're all just like tools, containers, opportunities, practices that give us, you know, the space to go and do that deep work. And it's like, people will get out of it what they bring to it, and like that level of vulnerability they're willing to go to with themselves and with others. And so everyone can have, you know, an experience that feels like right for them. But based on the work that you do and the kind of conversations you have and the heart that you have, and that's the authenticity, the self-awareness, I think you would have an incredible experience with any of these resources. Yeah.
Sweet, man. Awesome. Okay, let's do it.
Sweet.
Okay.